Well, hello. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a fun one. If you have been living under a rock for like the last couple of months or even, most likely the last couple of years, you haven't really heard about this sort of revolution that's happening in IT at the moment. And it's all about AI and how AI is going to take over all of our jobs and, like do everything and automate absolutely everything that can be automated. Now, one of the applications that has really gotten traction over like the last couple months, I think it was released in December and had some record sort of user base growth in the first few days of its deployment. So yeah, this application ChatGPT is what we're talking about. And it has really taken the world by storm. Lots of people are concerned about it. And it is, also lots of people are really optimistic about it as well, because it has the potential to be this amazing tool to perform your task or to help you in your day-to-day tasks. Now, I think that's just sort of scraping the surface of what this thing is capable of and what it is going to mean for everyone moving forward. So today on this video, I thought I would take a look at ChatGPT and see how that can specifically help a Power Apps developer. Now, you might have already seen that lots of people are posting these sort of videos where they are asking ChatGPT to help them with all sorts of things. Or you can see on the screen here, this is ChatGPT open right now. And one of the examples is explain quantum computing in simple terms to me. If I type this in, ChatGPT will sort of give me this really cool answer. Now, ChatGPT is not like Googling something. It is sort of next level to that, where with Google, if I were to Google this, I may get like a short explanation, but really what Google's going to do is provide me a whole heap of links to articles on the internet. Google is a search engine, where ChatGPT, on the other hand, is an AI or an intelligence, like an artificial intelligence, which will respond to me in kind. It will respond to me in an intelligent way based on its knowledge or its access to knowledge. So like I can effectively have a conversation with this program or with this website, and it'll be in context the whole time. So as I'm talking to it, it will know what I'm talking about, or I can correct it, and we can continue on the conversation until we come up with something that I'm happy with. So yeah, it's a completely different experience from something like Google. And like I said, this is just scratching the surface of what this technology is going to do for everybody in the future. So how does it affect Power Apps developers? Well, I guess, I don't know. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't tried to do anything with ChatGPT and Power Apps. I don't know, to be honest, I don't really know how it's going to affect stuff, because I kind of think of, if you were to say, ask ChatGPT, how do I how would I write a Python application, or how would I write an application for a Raspberry Pico to flash an LED light or something like that? I expect it's going to be able to give me a good example of how to do that. And I think of those kind of standards as being more sort of open, and, they run on a whole heap of different platforms, and they're kind of these web standards. Well, that Raspberry Pico example isn't really a web standard, but it's running Python, which is this open standard and that like a development platform that's been around for many, many years. Where Power Apps doesn't really fit into that. Power Apps runs in an Office 365 tenant and is really closed from that. I mean, when you do a search for when you do a Google search for looking for a Power App solution, most likely you're either going to find a YouTube video that's going to help you, or like an article on the Microsoft forums, or the some specific forum for Power Apps. And it's not really something that is like a standard across different development platforms and different platforms. It is something internal to Office 365. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking here, but I'm trying to set this up where, for people who don't know anything about ChatGPT and just sort of like want to get their head around what am I doing here? What am I about to demonstrate? But like I said, I don't know if ChatGPT is even going to understand or know what Power Apps are. So this is going to be like a learning or like a voyage of discovery for everyone that is in the same boat as me. Now, I'm sure there's people out there that have already tried this and know what results I'm going to get. But I can see here like some of these other questions are like, how do I make a HTTP request in JavaScript? This is interesting. So yeah, like got any creative ideas for a 10-year-old's birthday? So as you can see, ChatGPT just knows stuff about absolutely anything apparently. So will it know anything about Power Apps? Don't know. So I guess we should just ask it something. Maybe let's find out if ChatGPT knows anything about Power Apps. So how about we just ask it that first? So, do you know what Power Apps are? Thinking. I think I broke ChatGPT on my first request. Okay, here we go. Yes, I'm familiar with Power Apps. Maybe I should be reading this in some kind of robotic voice. Yes, I'm familiar with Power Apps. Power Apps is a Microsoft service that allows users to create custom business applications for web and mobile devices without needing to write code. Well, yep, correct. Power Apps provides a visual drag and drop interface for building apps and allows users to connect to data from a variety of sources, including Excel, SharePoint, Dynamics 365, and more. It can be used to automate business processes, create custom forms, and build workflows. Power Apps is part of the Power Platform, which also includes Power Automate, formerly known as Microsoft Flow, and Power BI. Well, yeah, okay, 100%. Like, yep, A for correct. And yeah, that is completely correct. So yeah, okay, we've established that ChatGPT knows about Power Apps, but can ChatGPT actually help me build a Power App? That is another question entirely. So how about we ask it something simple like, how do I build a Power App? How do I build a Power App? Thinking about it. The other thing to remember that this is contextual. So I'm currently, you can see this highlighted here, Power App's description, which I guess is my first question I asked it. But we're in this context of this conversation. So it's if I just refer to apps from now on, it'll probably know that I'm talking about Power Apps. This is my guess. All right, how do I build a Power App? Building a Power App generally involves the following steps. Here we go. Identify the problem or business need that you want to address with the app. Right? Yep, absolutely. Choose a template or create a blank app. Yep. Power Apps provides several templates to help you get started, such as a form, a list, or a Canvas app. Yeah, wow. Yep. If you choose a template, you can customize it to fit your needs. If you choose a blank app, you can design it from scratch. Connect to data. Power Apps allows you to connect to data from a variety of resources or variety of sources such as Excel, SharePoint, Dynamic 365, and more. You can use this data to populate the app and create forms like lists and other elements. Design the user interface. Use the Power App's visual drag and drop interface to design the layout, add controls, and customize the look and feel of an app. You can also add custom code if you want to create more advanced functionality. Interesting. I wonder what it's talking about there. Maybe like using functions and stuff within Power Apps. Can't really use JavaScript. So that's interesting. Test and deploy the app. Once you have completed building the app, you can test it to make sure it works as intended. Then you can deploy it to share it with others or publish it to an app store. Interesting. Continuously improve the app, monitor usage, gather feedback, and make changes as the app is necessary. Keep in mind that the specifics of building a Power App will depend on the app's requirement and complexity. I mean, this is all right. It's very high level, but yeah, it's all right. What did you mean about custom code? I wonder if it'll understand that question. It's running pretty slow, actually. It's definitely thinking about stuff. When I mentioned custom code, I was referring to the ability to developers to add custom code to a Power App in order to create advanced functionality or to customize the app beyond what is achieved with the visual drag and drop interface. Power Apps has a built-in scripting language called Power Apps Formula Language, which allows developers to write formulas and expressions to perform calculations and make decisions in the app. Additionally, Power Apps allows developers to use custom connectors to connect to custom APIs, and also has the ability to use JavaScript to add custom logic to an app. Okay. That I did not know. So I'm not quite sure how you add JavaScript directly to an app. Maybe through a a component. That I might have to research. Keep in mind that using custom code in Power Apps requires a good understanding of programming concepts in the Power Apps platform. Well, this stuff that's bang on though. Power Apps has scripting language for the formula language, which is, that's correct. And, writing formulas and expressions to perform calculations, and also custom connectors, like connecting to HTTP connectors and stuff. That's bang on. Keep in mind that using custom code in Power Apps requires a good understanding of programming concepts and the Power Apps platform, and is typically done by developers with experience in software development. However, non-developers can also use the pre-built formula language provided by Power Apps to achieve some customizations. Well, yeah. True. Okay, so yeah, pretty high level stuff, but you can see I asked it about something specifically about what it was talking about, which is really good. And it's key. Like I said, it's keeping the context. So I think we should ask it something specific. So how do I build an app in Power Apps that takes user input and and saves it to a SharePoint list? This will be interesting. So now I'm asking it something really specific, well, more specific, and I wonder how much detail it will go into. Here's an overview of the steps to build a Power App that takes user input and saves it to SharePoint. Right. Create a new app in Power Apps. You can either choose a template or create a blank app. For this example, we'll use a blank app. Hey, I always use blank apps as well. Connect to your SharePoint list in the Power Apps home screen. Click on Connections and provide the necessary credentials to connect to your SharePoint site. Once connected, select the list you want to use and click Connect. Yeah, wow, okay. This is all high level, but this is more detailed and more specific for sure. Design the user interface. Use the Power Apps visual drag and drop interface to add controls such as text input, drop downs, and buttons to your app. These controls will be used to capture user input. Create a form to capture user input. Drag and drop a form control from the insert. Right, okay, so it's either saying use some input buttons and text boxes, or you can do it via a form control, which is that's 100% correct. I mean, it's very high level, but it's not really explaining how to do it. But this is sort of more specific because it's saying create a form to create a user input, drag and drop a form control from the insert menu to the app, which that's pretty specific, and bind it to the SharePoint list. Right. So yeah, so you'd have to know how to do that, or we can ask it how to do that. This will create a form that will automatically create input fields for each column in the list. Yes, it does do that. Add functionality to the form. You can use the onNew property of the form to set default values for form fields and use the onSubmit property to save the form data to SharePoint lists. Yeah, wow. This is also more detail for sure. Test the app. Once you have completed building the app, you can test it to make sure it works as intended. You can use the preview button to test the app. Publish the app. When you're ready to share the app with others, you can publish it by clicking on the file menu and then click publish. Right. I think also one thing to also note that ChatGPT is they have it's working on older sort of standards. So I think they've isolated it from the internet and isolated it from new data up until 2021. Maybe they're trying to stop it from becoming all-knowing and control its progress. But I think some of this stuff, like it's describing the old way of doing this, where the new interface in Power Apps is slightly different to publish, where you know how you get the little toolbar on the top right hand corner. But anyway, this is still great. This is still really pretty. This is explaining how to do it quite well. And then, okay, so test the app. Once you've completed building the app, you can test it to make sure it works as intended. You can use the preview button to test the app. Perfect. Publish the app. Once you're ready to share the app with others, you can then publish it by clicking on the File menu and selecting Publish. You can then share the app with others by providing them with a link or publishing it in the App Store. Yeah, nice. If you're not familiar with Power Apps formula language, you may want to look at some tutorials and sample code. So this is really interesting. So I've asked this stuff, and ChatGPT's told me this, which is, this is all correct pretty much, but it's decided for some reason that, what it's told me is not 100% going to get me to where I need to go. So it's making some assumptions that I still need to know more, and I don't really have enough to do this. But so it's saying, hey, if you want to learn more about some of these formulas, check out some tutorials and sample code. This will help you understand the base. So it's almost like, hey, rather than Googling something, I'm actually talking to a Power Apps expert here, and they're talking to me like I'm a complete noob, and they're like giving me these instructions at really sort of a simple level, hoping that I'll understand. And then, it's also realizing, hey, you're going to need to know more than just this to get into Power Apps. So I would say up until this point, this is actually really useful. This is sort of turning out to be pretty useful. So I want to get it to sort of expand on this a little bit. Is there any way to do this without using the form control. So yeah, this is really specific to what it's talking about here. And, maybe as a real sort of beginner developer, I have been shown maybe a couple of ways, or I have seen a couple of ways to do this. And this form control doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So I'm hoping now it's going to suggest using patch. Yes, it is possible to capture user input to a SharePoint list without using the form controls and Power Apps. One way to do this is by using individual controls such as yep, and then writing custom code to handle the data submission and saving it. Yeah. Okay, here's an example of how you might do this. Create a new app in Power Apps, as described in my previous answer. Love that. Design the user interface by adding controls such as write custom code to handle the data submission. You can use the Power Apps formula language to create formulas that handle the input validation and then submit the data to the SharePoint list using the patch function. Okay, wow. Okay. This is actually really good. I'm sort of impressed. Test the app by using the preview button to test the app. Publish the app by clicking on the file menu and then selecting the publish and share the app with others. Keep in mind this method requires a good understanding of programming concepts. Yeah, I mean, this is sort of stuff that I would say as well to somebody like who was asking me about this. I would say, like, yeah, you need to sort of have, and I've said this before to people, like, you kind of need to come from a bit of a programming background or have some concepts in mind of how this works. Like, it's not just for people who, business users that have never done programming before. Like, I think you need to have your head around those concepts first to delve into this. And this is where the real power of Power Apps is unlocked. But it gives you more flexibility as you can add custom validation, calculations, and other functionalities that might not be available in the form control. I think if you go back and watch my Power Apps video on patch, you'll see I've said almost these exact words. Yeah, okay guys, so this is really this is kind of crazy. Like, this is like saying stuff that I have said to people. Anyway, right, okay, so can you give me an example of using the patch function? Okay. Thinking about it. Sure. Sure. This patch function is used to update a record in a data source such as SharePoint. So yeah, so it knows we've been talking about SharePoint because we're still in the same convo. Here's an example of how you might use the patch function to update a SharePoint list. Patch, yep. Defaults, column 1, column 2. Yeah, it's even done a drop down control just to show the difference. This is perfect because it's showing us these controls and how we're referencing the values out of the control. I like the fact that it's even formatted it correctly. In this example, the patch function is used to update the SharePoint list data source. Well, yeah, it's creating, here it will be creating a new item. The default function is used to specify which record in the list should be updated, correct? In this case, it is set to create a new record. Beautiful. The curly braces define the columns that have been updated, yep, and the new values. Yep, the values for the columns are coming from the controls in the app, such as text input 1, text input 2, and drop down 1. You can also use the patch function in combination with other functions such as submit form or the navigate function to create a more complex behavior, this is what we do, guys. We patch something and then we navigate back to the home screen. For example, you can use the submit form function to clear the form after the data has been submitted. Or you can use the submit form function to clear the form. Wonder what it means by that. Like, is it saying that I will put my controls, I'm going to use the form function, which this is something I don't do in my Power Apps currently. But I do have this problem of because when you're using Patch and you submit a form, you've got to then reset all the controls because next time you go in, you want them to be blank. So you need to reset them back to their default values. Now, I think what it's saying here is that you can put all those controls into a form control, like define them inside of a form control or form function, sorry. And then you can just use the clear. For example, you can use the submit form function to clear the form after the data is submitted. Or you can use the navigate function to redirect the user to a different screen after the data has been submitted, which is exactly what we do. But this is interesting about this form control. I might actually try this at some point. I've never done it, so that's really interesting. I've learned something. It's important to note that to use the patch function, the SharePoint list you are patching to must have a unique identifier column. Well, yeah. So here, okay, so in this example, I like how it's also giving us this copy code thing. That's really good. So in this example, it's giving us patch, and it's showing us how to update an existing record. So, okay, so we got patch, and then we do a lookup, the unique identifier column equals var. So yeah, it's just saying whatever our unique identifier column equals var, do a lookup to this record and patch it. So yeah, I don't typically use lookup. When I'm patching an existing record, I just use the ID. I just pass the ID record. I don't use lookup normally, but if you were using something that you wanted to make sure that you're patching a unique record, and lookup, remember the lookup function only returns a single record back. So if you're assuming this is a unique identifier, but it isn't, or unique identifier column, I should say, and it isn't unique, this will still return back only a single record. It'll return back the first time it finds it in the list. So it won't error out. It just means that you're not going to be updating like every record with this value. But this is good. So yeah, like as long as you've made sure that this is a unique identifier, this will work totally fine. This way you can update a specific record in SharePoint list, not just create a new one. Keep in mind that this is just an example. Well, it's a pretty damn good example, I'd like to say. Well, I would say ChatGPT. It's really good. Wow. Okay, so one last question. How do I then display all records in the SharePoint list in my Power App? No, I won't even say that. I'll just say, how do I display all records in the SharePoint list? So hopefully it tells me something about galleries, but at this point, I don't have much of a doubt that it isn't going to tell me that. Like, it's going to know for sure. There are several ways to display all records in a SharePoint list in Power Apps, but one common method is to use the gallery control. A gallery control is a container that can hold multiple items such as records from a data source. This is an example of how you might use a gallery control to display all records in a SharePoint list. Add a gallery to your app, find the gallery control in the Insert menu, bind the gallery to SharePoint list and the gallery's control properties, customize the layout of the gallery, add drop-downs, blah, 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 set the gallery's control, sorting, and filtering options. In the gallery's control properties, you can set the sort and filter properties to sort and filter the records in the SharePoint list. Test the app by using the preview button to test the app. publish the app by clicking on the file menu and then selecting publish and share the app with others. It is important to note that depending on the amount of data, it might be beneficial to use pagination or filtering, so the data is received and displayed in chunks. This way it won't overload the app and the user experience is not affected. Wow. So yeah, so again, this thing is answering my question. Like, it's trying to be helpful, and it's answering my question and sort of putting little bits in there, like in the same way talking to an expert in building power apps would explain this to someone who doesn't know how to build a power app or has very little experience. And these are the sort of quips that, like I've mentioned heaps of times when talking to people who are wanting to learn how to use power apps. And, you might say, well, yeah, use a gallery, but just, make sure you probably use some filtering on that gallery. So if you've got a gallery on your homepage, make sure you're filtering it in some way, because you don't necessarily want to give the user absolutely every record that's in your data table. Like, you want to be able to filter that based on some kind of experience. Otherwise, it can, the app won't overload and the user experience is not affected, which is, a high level way of saying that your app will just work better. It'll be faster and the user experience will be better if that gallery is tailored to what the user expects to see. Now, that just might be like a sorting by date, descending, or like sorting by ID descending, so your newest records are up the top, or sorting by a date submitted or something like that, or even filtering by default by the user that, maybe by default the gallery will just filter records based on who's connected to it. That's really cool that it's talking about stuff like that. Keep in mind, this is just an example of how, and that the specifics of how to display data from a SharePoint list in a Power App would depend on the requirements. Well, of course, yeah. So it's just saying there that this is an example. Like in your Power App, these columns are going to be named something different, aren't they? And your controls are going to be named something different. We're just scratching the surface of this, like I said before. Like, I've just asked it a few questions and just having this little conversation with ChatGPT about building Power Apps. And I mean, we could just keep going with this. Like, how do I display an image in my Power App? There are several ways to display an image in Power Apps. One common method is to use the image control. Here's an example of how you might use an image control to display an image in Power Apps. There you go. It's going to give us an explanation on how to do that. I have no doubt that this will be correct. Yeah. Yep. Wow. Okay, guys. I'll probably leave that here. This is, let me know if you want more videos on ChatGPT and building Power Apps, and we can maybe do another video where I actually sit down and build a Power App using ChatGPT. So have Power Apps open in one screen and ChatGPT in the other, and just continuously ask it questions until it's actually able to describe exactly what I need to do to build that app. I'm guessing just from playing around with this now that it's probably going to be possible, and this thing is probably going to be able to do it. Crazy. It's just stopping short from actually building the Power App for you, which this thing doesn't have arms and legs yet, so it can't operate a mouse, although you could argue that it could spit out the code or whatever. But at the moment, I don't think Power Apps doesn't really work that way, so not possible at this point, but maybe in the near future. Look out, all Power Apps developers, this thing is coming for us. It's coming for us. It's coming for your job. Well, we'll see. But I think, very, very impressed. And like I said, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, click the like button, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest content, and comment something in the comment section below. I thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.